So last summer, my family and I were having our usual Sunday gathering at Grandma's house. It's a tradition, where we all bring something to eat, and Grandma always surprises us with some new quirky hobby she's picked up. One week it was origami swans, the next it was baking bread shaped like famous landmarks. This time, though, she had taken up knitting, which seemed perfectly normal until we noticed she wasn't knitting for us. No, she was knitting these tiny sweaters for the trees in her backyard. My cousin Dave joked that Grandma was branching out with her knitting projects, but we didn't think much of it. Until the neighbors started complaining. Apparently, the tree sweaters were a hit with everyone except Mr. Johnson, the grumpy guy next door. He started raising a stink about how the knitted sweaters were making the local squirrels too comfortable, claiming they were getting too cozy and now had no reason to leave his bird feeders alone. But it wasn't the squirrels that set him off, it was the dogs. See, these neighborhood dogs started spending an unusual amount of time barking at Grandma's trees. Mr. Johnson swore up and down that it was the sweater's bright colors that were antagonizing the dogs. We thought it was just Mr. Johnson being his usual self, until things took a weirdly competitive turn. That's when Mrs. Anderson from across the street decided to one-up Grandma. She started crocheting little hats and scarves for the garden gnomes in her yard. It was like an unspoken war of yard fashion erupted overnight. Soon, the entire street was involved. Tiny knitted pants for fence posts, crochet cozies for mailboxes, and needlepoint neckties for lampposts. The dogs were losing their minds, running from one yard to another, barking up a storm. It was like the Westminster Dog Show meets Project Runway, with all the chaos you would imagine. Finally, in an attempt to broker peace, Grandma invited Mr. Johnson over for tea, hoping to smooth things over. As they sat on the porch, surrounded by a veritable fashion show of knitted wonders, Mr. Johnson finally admitted that it wasn't the sweaters that bothered him. He just couldn't handle the fact that the trees were better dressed than he was. Grandma chuckled and promised to knit him a matching sweater. As the dogs continued to bark in the background, Mr. Johnson shrugged and said, "Well, I guess the bark really is worse than the bite."